Why, hello, healing mamas. Welcome back to the podcast today. I hope today finds you really well and just truly just counting your blessings today. And I feel tremendously blessed that I get to welcome Jennifer onto the podcast today. So, Jennifer, do you mind saying hi to the listeners?
Hi everyone, I'm Jennifer Bell. I'm a mommy to two and wife of Cuddy Bell.
Woohoo! Yay.
Yay!
Thanks for coming on the podcast, Jennifer. I'm excited about our conversation today. Looking forward to it. So I think, I often just jump in. I mean, we've had you and I actually get to know each other in real life. So that's kind of cool because a lot of different people who come on the podcast, we haven't even got to meet in real life. Like we're across the country or even in other countries. And so it's always fun when somebody who is more local gets to come on the podcast and we get to talk and, just to have some fun, share your story. So I appreciate that we know each other a little bit. So
Yeah,
I
happy to be here.
yeah. Thank you. So I would like to just start out like wherever you would like to start, because you're a mama and you're a wife and you're an advocate. Like you're amazing. You do a lot for the community in Abilene. And so yeah, start in, jump in where you would like.
Okay, so I'm Jennifer Bell. Like I said, I have two amazing babies. One's not really a baby anymore. She's 7, Lily, and then I have Grady. He's 4 months now. I'm married. I've been married for almost 16 years. So yeah, I kind of don't know where to start, but so
Sure. Let's
um,
start the beginning then. That's a good
okay.
place to start.
Yeah. So, my husband and I had fertility struggles all throughout our marriage. We were married for 8 years before we had my daughter. I was 34 at that time. She was born in December of 2016. She was a planned home birth, but ended up being a birth center birth, which for me is basically the same. I had her in 2016. Like I said, I used a midwife out of San Angelo. At that time, we only had one practicing midwife, and that was Carol. And that's when she was having her health issues, and so she wasn't really in a place to take on new clients.
Other people may not understand that, but that's
Oh,
something that we
sorry.
haven't really talked about. No, I just think that's something there's people listen all over, all over the place. So specific to our area, I know everyone around here who's in the birth world knows what you're talking about, but I think it's good to mention, like, I don't think we've ever talked before about how having a midwife in the area that maybe I'm not sure if you were seeing her, but I know a lot of people were seeing her and then she had tremendous health issues and then having to figure out what to do from there,
Yeah,
and switch providers and try to figure out care and dealing with the trauma of, hey, this person I care about is my provider. However, she cannot do that now. And so we have to completely change game. So I'd love to hear kind of your thoughts on that.
So I interviewed with Carol, and actually Jennifer was one of her student midwives. Jennifer Specht, who I later used, was one of her student midwives at that time. And I interviewed her, and we just didn't like totally kick it off. I was on the fence. I really wanted to do a home birth. I really wanted to do an out of hospital birth. I really wanted to be in control of my birth because due to the infertility thing, I never really felt in control of that aspect of my life. And I'm a super type A person. And so control was really important to me. I wanted to do a home birth. But I didn't quite click with her. And I was on the fence about using her. And then I had heard that maybe I didn't really hear until later, but come to find out she had cancer. But I heard she was having some pretty big health struggles, and so I just decided, you know what, that's not for me. Then I think I just need to go another path, and so I started seeing an MD here. I'm not gonna say who, but I started seeing an MD here, and I just kind of got on that conveyor belt, and I just was going through the motions. Due to like all of my history, Lily was my uh, fourth pregnancy. And so, due to my history with her, she's my first child though. Um, they put me as high risk, and so I was doing the whole fetal specialist, maternal fetal
The
specialist, where I was going
MFM.
every month.
Yeah.
Yes, and I was getting monthly sonograms, and I just was definitely in that hamster wheel, and the whole time I was thinking like, "Oh, I'm not gonna wanna induce, I'm not gonna want an epidural," and I
Mm.
don't even feel comfortable, like, starting to try to have these conversations with this man who comes into this room for 2 minutes and takes a peek and then leaves, you know? So, um, around about, you know what it was? So Sabrina Elliott, who's a midwife here also now, she was a doula then, and she put out this video about a client that she had, and I had just been praying a lot, you know, what am I gonna do? There's not a midwife here, you know, how am I gonna figure this out? I don't want to have a hospital birth. And she had made a video about a client and just the state of care here in Abilene. And it was really touching. And I was like, man, she's really cool. Like, I like what she says. And she had purple hair at that time, which, you know, I was like, yes, go her. That's so amazing. And I thought, man, I want to get a hold of her and have her be my doula. And, you know, maybe she can help me have an okay hospital birth. And I ran into her the very next day at United that I'm at all the time. And she had that purple hair, so she's very identifiable. And I said, hey, you know, I watched your video and it was really cool. And I want to talk to you. I want you to be my doula. And, you know, let's figure some things out. And so a couple days later, we met at Starbucks, and she told me about Kelly Miller in San
Mhm.
Angelo. And she told me she was studying, and I was like, well, when are you going to be licensed? Like, maybe we should just do an illegal birth here. And she just kind of like laughed me off, but she didn't really know me that well. Now I think now she'd take me a little more seriously if I said something like that. But she told me about Kelly Miller, and I can't remember if there were any other ones, but it was Kelly Miller that, you know, I was most interested in talking to. And so I went to San Angelo and I met with Kelly, and, you know, I loved her personality. She felt very like warm and motherly, and, you know, it was just, I feel like we really vibed.
Yeah.
And so I was going to transfer care to her. Um, but then I had a like fairly large subchorionic hemorrhage, and I dilated to an inch, and this was right at about 22 weeks. And I mean, an inch, Lord, a centimeter. So I did end up going to the hospital. I talked to her and she was like, you know, it's okay. Nothing else, you know, as long as nothing else happens, you're okay. But I wasn't really able to like have that faith in myself and not freak out because of my history. And so I went ahead and went to the hospital, and, you know, the MD checked me and he ended up admitting me. And I think I was in the hospital for about 3 days. They did give me like magnesium, the smooth muscle relaxer, but nothing else.
Mhm.
And he told me then, like, I don't really think you're about to go into labor. Otherwise, I'd be having you on a helicopter and you'd be going to Cooks. We didn't have the neonatology capabilities here that we do now. But so I ended up kind of sticking with him, and he put me on bed rest for 2 weeks, which was hard, but my husband really was super helpful and super amazing. So I just sat on the couch for 2 weeks, and then everything was fine. And that was kind of like my only blip during that pregnancy. And so I kind of continued on with both of them at the same time. I
Can
was,
I ask a question?
yeah.
With your fertility struggles, did you guys do anything in order to be able to, get pregnant this time?
So no, we did try different things,
Okay.
but neither one of them were how I conceived my children. Like none of the,
Okay.
yeah,
Alright. That's
um,
neat.
yeah, no, I did not go as far as trying IVF. I just didn't know what I would do if there was, you know, a lot of embryos, and
Yeah.
you know, so that
Yeah,
was
I was
not.
just curious, yeah.
Yeah, no, I did do for we did do I did like Famara and other things, but I never actually conceived while actively doing fertility treatments.
Hmm, interesting.
I know, isn't that wild? And honestly, it was kind of when I just stopped stressing out about it with Lily. And I know that that's like so the story, but you just have to
It
get
is the
there in your
story.
own mind. You have to get there in your
Yeah.
own mind, and then it wasn't too long after that. I actually have this really amazing story. I'm going to sidetrack this for a minute. I was outside of the office one day, and the owner of Fat Mat Roofing came by.
Mhm.
Just walking by, and he just stopped and he said, "Hey, can I pray for you?" And I didn't wanna tell him because I had just found out that it hadn't worked the last month, and so I didn't wanna, like, tell this stranger, "Oh, yeah," And so I was like, "No, I'm good, like, pray for my friend whose cat died." But in my mind, I was thinking I really would like a baby, really, really like a baby, and then in the next couple of days, I was like, "I just need to stop stressing out. I just need to stop stressing out. I need to stop stressing out." The next month, I conceived. And so, like
Oh, that's
I know,
awesome. I love
and it
it.
makes me kinda choked up. So, anyway, I kinda credit that guy. I'm like, "Oh, thanks for praying for me, even though you didn't even know you were praying for me." Uh, so, anyway, I got sidetracked there, but oh, yeah, fertility treatment. So, yeah, nope, didn't conceive on fertility, but so I kept going with the doctor and then with Kelly, I was just kind of afraid to dump him, I guess, but 2 days before I was 37 weeks, my water broke, but just a little, it wasn't like a massive thing. Um, so I called Kelly and the night before in hindsight, there was some signs. I kinda felt off and like I was like, "Oh, am I having blood pressure problems? Like I feel weird." And I took my blood pressure and nothing really normal. And then I lost my mucus plug, but, it was not a big deal because that happens, so I just was like, "Whatever." I didn't really put 2 and 2 together, like, "Oh, hey, these are signs that it's gonna be really soon since you're also feeling bad." So then the next morning, probably about 7 AM, my water broke just a little though, and so I called Kelly, and she was like, "Well, I think I want you to come here. I have another girl in Kerrville who I'm also on call for, and y'all are way far apart, so why don't you come here? Let's check and, let's just talk about things." And I was kind of freaking out because I wasn't ready. I was only
Mm,
37 weeks. I didn't know that you could, in the scope of a normal birth, give birth at 37 weeks and everything be
that
fine.
early. Yeah.
Yeah. Um, I actually had a birth class scheduled for the following Monday, and I missed that. But so,
Mm,
I was kind of freaking out. Like I was like, I'm not ready. I don't even have the car seat installed, Kelly. And she's like, listen, if that's your biggest problem, throw it in the car and get here. Let's go.
we're okay. Yeah.
We can do that later. And so, I just kind of sat there for a little bit and my husband was still asleep. I hadn't told him anything that was going on. And I was sleeping at on the couch at that point. I had such bad acid reflux that I had to sleep in an upright position. So I was sleeping on the couch and, I went in there. I would let him keep sleeping because nothing was like majorly happening. So I went
Right.
in there, woke him up like right about when he would normally wake up for work. And I told him, I said, "Hey, my water broke." And he just was like, "Oh my goodness, what?" And I was like, "I'm fine. Everything's fine. No big deal. But we do need to go to San Angelo." And so he's like, okay." And I know you've heard this story, but he gets out. He has a home office. He works from home. And so he gets up and he comes in here, just shuts the door, like kind of aggressively. I could tell he had some nervous energy. And he shuts the door, and I hear his radio come on or his stereo or whatever, and he starts jamming. It's the final countdown. Top volume. I'm absolutely positive my neighbors are
Oh,
and like
that's
happening
hilarious.
at that house at 8 o'clock in the morning. So he, took his little minute, in here and composed himself. And then, he came out and he's like, "Okay, I'm ready. What do I need to do?" And so we we hurried up and we got everything together and we like rushed to San Angelo and we get there and we basically just chill for 2 days in San Angelo. We move into Kelly's birth center because the girl in Kerrville was also, she's on call for her and she's like, "I don't want to go to Abilene and then her going to labor." She's like, "I think I'm gonna have you come here. And that way if she goes into labor, you can come here too." And so we get there and she's like, "Well, your water's definitely broken, but people can walk around with broken water. It's not massive. You still have a lot of the fluid. You should need to drink plenty and the rules that I had to follow for no, you know, nothing inside because the water
Right.
needs to be
Don't want
broken."
to introduce any bacteria.
Right, exactly. And it was in that moment I learned that that's why you get on the clock at the hospital is because they
Right.
introduce things that could cause bacteria. So anyway, she gave us the option, you can just go ahead and go home and, see what happens, or you can hang out here. And, first time parents, no birth experience really to speak of. And so we chose to stay there. And we just like hung around San Angelo for 2 days. That was
Yeah.
on a Wednesday. We like went to dinner, we went shopping. I was just walking around in a diaper and a house dress, checking out San Angelo. And we just hung out at the birth center, kind of waiting for things to happen. So it was 2 days before I was 37 weeks. So legally she couldn't, like, was not supposed to deliver, um, you know, outside of that 37-week window. And so she didn't really want to do anything, to get things going because it was outside of that window. And so um,
Right.
on Thursday, kind of Thursday evening, she came up to the birth center and we talked. And I was like, she was like, well, you're 37 weeks tomorrow. So tomorrow we can start doing things. And so she gave me a breast pump, and then I forget the homeopathic names, but black and blue cohosh. She gave me those, and you know, um, told me to alternate, do nipple stimulation and alternate those. And she said, get you a good night's sleep, and then start in the morning when you wake up, and we'll see what happens. So I was like, okay, cool. And I, being the super type A person I am, started at midnight because I was
Of course.
like, get it going. So I started at midnight, and it wasn't even 30 minutes, Madon. Like it was quick. Within like 30 minutes,
Wow.
I took one dose of each. I did 2 rounds of nipple stimulation, and then I started having contractions. They were far apart. They were like 15, 20 minutes apart, but they were regular and
Yeah,
routine.
but still, yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, it was really cool. That was actually my first experience with homeopathy. So that was pretty cool. Um, anyway, that got going. So I didn't even take any more. I just kind of like napped in between the contractions. Back then I could like actually lay down and nap whenever I wanted before before I was a mom. So I just would fall asleep in between, and then so probably about 8 in the morning, she calls me and she says, hey, I'm just letting you know that the other girl has gone into labor and she's on her way to the birth center, and so are we. And I was like, oh, cool, cool. I also am in labor. I was waiting to call you because it wasn't like full, labor yet.
Right.
So she was like, fantastic news. So that was funny. But so she came in, and she came in and she was like, okay, so have you let Sabrina know what's going on? And I'm like, oh, should I have? And she just kind of gave me one of those looks like, yes, what?
She is your doula.
Yes. And so I called Sabrina and I was like, oh, hey, I'm in labor in San Angelo. And she was definitely like, whoa, okay, I'm making a plan. Um, and so I mean, this is like 10 hours after she went on call for me. Like in hindsight, like when I tell that story, I now know that she had just literally gone on call for me and already on call.
Right.
She was probably
Yep.
like, whoa.
A little unexpected.
Yeah, right. I mean, but kind of leave it to me, right? But so she came, and Kelly had a student midwife, and so from there things went pretty fast, and smooth. Well, I mean, at
Good.
the end there was a little bit, but the whole process, like I was like, can I shower? And yep, you can shower. So I took a shower. I put on my cute little birth gown, and I just, hung out. My husband put on the playlist, and he was making jokes that were funny at first, and they weren't so funny later.
It's
But
funny how that happens in
yeah,
labor, huh?
yeah, so and we were just hanging out. Things were going good. I think I don't know the exact timeline, but I kept progressing, I think, pretty normally. And then, I went into transition. And I threw up, and then things got real serious real fast. And, I went into hard labor. And so I wanted to get in the tub. I did not want to have a water birth, but I decided to labor in the tub. They had
Mhm.
set it up. So I thought, oh, I like baths, why not?
For sure.
So I got in the tub. My husband was a little like, well, what are you doing? And I was like, I'm just chilling, like I'm just relaxing. I'm just trying to, help my body out here. So I hung out in the tub for a long time, and I started feeling like, okay, I need to push. And so I started pushing, but I never really I didn't have that follow through. And
Yeah.
I was in the tub for quite a while, and Kelly was running back and forth, bless her heart. And so Sabrina was right there the whole time, just,
Mm.
don't do this. This will help. Don't do that. Um, and it was so funny. My husband's like pacing over in the corner, and at one point, I think Kelly said to him, like, "Hey, Dad, if you're gonna pass out, like, you need to sit down because nobody cares about you." And he's like, "I'm fine.
You're not our focus right now.
Yeah, just take care of her," he said. And so he was just off, kind of in the background, but like always there. Like I knew he was there, and so,
Mhm.
um, but I couldn't. Uh, to me, baths are relaxing. I get in the bath to relax, but I was in a bath needing to like handle business, and I was struggling with that. And Kelly even said to me, "You're not finishing your contractions. You're not pushing all the way through." And
A
so,
lot of people will get in the tub and then just they kind of like it's relaxing, but when it comes to pushing, they don't feel grounded. Like they don't feel like they have any like a hard surface or they
yes,
just don't feel grounded.
yes,
And
I
so
definitely had that.
sometimes, yeah, sometimes we just need to move location then.
Yeah, I definitely had that. Like I was like floating, suspended in the
Yes,
water, and like, yes,
exactly.
yeah,
Yeah.
yes, definitely grounding, I think probably played a factor. So I told my husband, or Kelly told my husband, "Hey, she's got to get out of this tub." And I was like, I'm struggling to stand up. And Kelly was like, "Get her out of the tub." And whoop, he didn't want me in the tub in the first place. So it was very easy for him to shoot, get me out of the
Awesome.
tub. And so Kelly put me on the medieval birth stool, and I was struggling again a little bit still, and I was at that point where I was kind of gassing out, and I was like, I don't know if I
Mhm.
can do this. I can't do this. And Sabrina said, "You are doing it." And Cody said, "Get mad at them eggs." Which is my favorite story to tell, but it's a reference from Cool Hand Luke, which nobody else
Uh-huh.
knows. But he said, "Jennifer, you just got to get mad at them eggs." And nobody else understood that reference. I know they all thought we were
I
insane,
love it.
but that was what my brain needed to hear in that moment. And that's like what we say to each other when it's like, this is hard, but you just have to do it. And
I
I did.
love it. What a great partner.
I he knew exactly what I needed to hear. But so I, got mad at the eggs, and out came Lily. And it was amazing. I'm getting a little choked up. After a long time, we were finally parents, and it was really, really awesome. So
That's amazing.
I'm gonna pause for a second and let you talk so I can compose myself.
Well, I just think that's so beautiful. Like so many lots of changes in that pregnancy and lots of unexpected things. Especially for a first time mom to go to for her water to break early like that and to really fully be in labor like right at 37 weeks. Like that is pretty shocking. That is unusual. So that's pretty amazing though that you did that. And then for two to be in labor at the same time. It really is unusual. I mean, we always talk about that in the birth world to be like, "Hey, but what if?" We're like, "Yeah, it rarely happens." Think about the odds. The odds of that actually happening, are so out there. And then when it happens, you're like, "Really?"
Yes, yeah.
But it
I
sounds
think
like
she was
that worked
actually
out
over. Go ahead.
yeah, it was good. Yeah, well, it just sounded like that worked out really well for you, and you had a doula, which was awesome, and
Yes,
I love she said you said that, she said, "But you are doing it," and that's one of my favorite things to say when mom is they're always in transition, and they're maybe already pushing, and they're just like, "At that point, I can't do this," and you're like, "But you're in the middle of it right now. You are doing this, and you're about to hold your baby." Like, you're
yeah.
doing amazing,
It's an important
and yeah,
reminder.
that was wise words. Yeah. For
Yeah,
sure, because it always feels like you're not gonna be able to do it right before you do it.
yeah, that's what she has told me that since
Yep.
the other mother, so she was overdue. I think I don't remember exactly how much, but she was overdue. And she was also a first time mom. But at one point my husband made a joke about, "Oh, you're racing her," and I wanted to punch him, but
Oh, no.
she and I had our babies within 30 minutes of each other. And so
Wow.
it was, I vividly remember Kelly like kind of busted in the room, and, kind of being like, "Oh gosh," you could tell she was like in the thick of it.
Yeah.
She was putting in work,
Oh, man.
so yeah, I bet she was really thankful for Sabrina that day because they were both really,
I bet.
yeah,
Yeah, for sure.
yeah. Um,
Yeah, a good doula is worth their weight in gold.
Yeah, yeah. So, yeah, I had Lily, and that was amazing. She's amazing. And then probably about a year, year and a half after we had her, we started talking about, okay, like we want to have another one. We always wanted to have at least 2 kids. So we stopped our, natural family planning. We stopped that and
Mhm.
kind of waited, and then off and on for the next 6 years we were trying. We went through fertility treatments again. We had to do all the testing again. I had a couple of issues where I had like cortisol induced anovulation, where I'd have like a really good follicle, but then I just wouldn't even ovulate. And
Mhm.
there was kind of a little bit of a concern that, like, am I going into early menopause? But it just ended up that I would be so stressed out that I wouldn't ovulate.
Isn't that amazing what stress
Yeah.
does to our body?
Yeah, it's a really big
Yeah.
bummer for, like, a type A
Mhm.
person to, like, calm down and not be stressed, and
And
of
I
course
always
that.
think about that. Do you think that part of that could be is because when we're so stressed out, our body is in that fight, flight, or freeze mode, and it says, "Okay, it's not safe to get pregnant.
Oh,
It's not safe right
absolutely.
now, so I
Yes,
can't do it."
absolutely. Yeah,
Yeah,
definitely,
so,
yeah.
that's pretty amazing how our body responds to us that way, and then, like you said the first time, when you decided to relax and just forget about it and stop trying and
Yes.
stop stressing out about it, then you got pregnant.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
so this time, was that similar? Like, how did that end up happening?
Yes. Yeah, I kind of we had stopped trying. We had been stopped trying for a little while. Not stop trying, but we weren't doing the tracking. I wasn't like charting and taking my temperature, and we weren't on fertility treatments or any of that. And I was 40 at that time when I conceived, and so just to be totally candid, I neither one of us really thought it was going to happen, and I think
Yeah.
we hadn't had that conversation, but we both had kind of given up hope. Um, and so it just happened. We were on vacation in Amarillo for a wedding, that my daughter was a flower girl in, and my husband was a groomsman, and as a family member. And I always tell them, you got married and I got a baby, so thanks a lot
Ah!
for getting married. And so yeah, it just happened. I was so surprised. My husband knew before I did. Oh, and really funny story. I don't know if I've ever actually told you this. So we went to Amarillo that weekend. The next weekend was the wellness summit here and that weekend, remember I was up on the stage and I had on that kind of like
Yes, yeah,
I
yeah.
had on an unflattering blue dress, and a friend of mine's dad was like, "Hey, how far along are you?" And I was like, "Oh, I'm not pregnant. I'm just fat." But I really was pregnant. I was only like a week pregnant, so I mean, he could have actually known. He tells people he knew. He says like, "Oh, I knew." Um,
That's funny.
but it's so funny, like in hindsight, like the way that life does things like that. But so anyway, yeah, I just like was trucking along, and I was talking to Cody, and I was like, I'm cranky. I was like, parent is late, and he was like, hey, I think you need to take a pregnancy test. I'm like, what are you talking about? And he's like, I think you might be pregnant because, like your boobs are really big. He's like, you're being a not nice word, which you aren't normally. It's like, so something's going on. And
Isn't it funny how those husbands will know sometime way before we do?
I was like, I thought he was crazy, but Dawn, I was like, no,
Mhm,
you're insane. Fine, I'll go
mhm.
to the store and I'll get a test. And he's working, which is yeah. So he's working. It's a night like maintenance window, and he's working, and he's in his office, and I'm in there like, okay, I'm just gonna pee on this thing, and it's gonna be negative because they're always negative. Like that's like I'm telling myself that they're always negative. I don't even let myself get my hopes up. This is the first time I've taken a pregnancy test in probably like a year or more, and I don't even I'm not expecting the positive at all. And it comes out positive, and I'm just shocked. Absolutely shocked. I immediately just start bawling
Of course.
because what? So I go and like knock on his door. He's like, I'm working. And I'm like, oh, my God, I don't care. Tell your job to buzz off. So he opens the door, and I just start bawling. And he was like, I told you, I knew that you were. And he just gave me a hug and he was like, "I love you so much, but I really do need to go back to work." So I was like, "Fine." And, I get on, like, my text with my girlfriends, and I'm like, "You guys, I'm pregnant," and of course they're all like, "What? Oh my gosh, this is amazing." And I've watched, like, all of them, several of them have had babies, since I've known them, and, like, most of them, some of them I've seen go through 2 pregnancies, in the time that I've known them since becoming like, my core friends group I kinda met because of Lily, and so I think they all just were probably crying with me. So many of them were like, "What?
I'm
This is
sure.
good news." Yeah. And my friend Sammy, who Sammy King, she's like not answering, and she was one of the people I had talked to the most about. And so I call her, and I just immediately am bawling. I'm like, "Why are you checking the group me?" And she's like, "What's wrong?" And I'm like, "I'm pregnant." And she's, "What? Oh my goodness." And so huge shocker for everyone involved except for my husband. But super amazing blessing. I'm 40 years old, so I kind of a little bit, I'm like, "Oh my goodness, like what?" But everybody kind of helped keep me grounded, like it's gonna be okay. I immediately
Do you
texted.
wanna talk about do
Go
you want to
ahead.
talk about the in between a little bit? Like,
Sure.
I think sometimes, especially when you're in I think it's a good thing to talk about because you've
Okay.
had that experience and there's some
Yeah.
things that we can talk about because I know that there are many women listening to this podcast that have probably had some similar situations. I
Yeah.
mean, there are many times that we take for granted our fertility. And
Yeah.
I know like me, like I was always able to just get pregnant real quick and there wasn't ever any issue. And
Yeah.
then one time it took a year and we were like, "Whoa, why did it take a year?" And so for us, that was a little out of ordinary, but can imagine your friends, all having babies and getting pregnant and all these things and being happy for them and being, joyous and celebrating with them. But at the same time, you're struggling with these fertility issues that you've had, and you're struggling with some other things probably going along with that, and it's very emotional.
Yeah. That was an especially hard time in my life, as a lot of roller coasters. Of course, I had Lily, and that was amazing. And I kind of that when you become a mom, you kind of transition in a lot of aspects of life, and so I kind of transitioned from not to say that I'm not friends with the people before, but I was free. I was going out, I was doing things, and so I kind of transitioned from having fun, you know untethered friends to mom friends who now we're
Yeah,
in this season of our life, and this is what we're focusing on. And so I met those women, and it is amazing to watch them. A lot of my friends are in the natural birth community. Like 3 of my friends are doulas. You and Jennifer are midwives. Like I know people now. And so it is amazing to watch them, but that period was especially hard. That was right during the COVID and everything that
oh
happened.
yeah, that's right,
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah. So, and of course, like, all that went on there. I didn't do the masks and the vaccine, and I was that when you mentioned earlier that I do the activism, that's kind of where that
yeah,
started. And so that was just a super stressful time for me anyway. And that I did have the stress-induced anovulation, kind of right in the height of all that. Um, so yeah, it was really tough. And you do kind of feel like I'm one of the older ones in my friends group, and so
yeah,
you do kind of feel like, man, I really really wish I could have a baby. And it is hard. It's hard to feel those emotions because you kind of are on both sides. You're like you're pregnant, and that's amazing, and you are having this beautiful baby, and I'm watching this baby grow up with you, and I'm watching you nurture and love this baby, and I'm so happy for you, but I really want that for
yeah,
myself.
yeah,
So
it's
it's
hard.
really hard, and we do take it for granted. My very first pregnancy, which I'm not going to go into too much, but my very first pregnancy, we weren't even trying. well, I was on birth control. It was, an accident per se. We were happy, we wanted the baby, but I from there, I just took it for granted. I lost that baby, and then from then on, I knew and understood the realities of what fertility was. And so that's why I said
Yeah.
with Lily, I just really wanted to have control. I really wanted to be in control. I had not been in control ever, and I needed to be in control. Um, I kind of thought everybody had told me, oh, well, once you kind of like get over that the hurdle and have the first one, then usually that fixes things. I got told that by like a lot of medical doctors. It's just like a reset your system. So even me with like 8 years of experience after the first baby, when I went to start trying for the second baby, I kind of took it for granted. I thought, oh, it'll take me a couple of tries. Boy.
Yeah.
So I
Yeah.
was super wrong. It took me 6 years. But yeah, it is hard,
Yeah.
and you go through all the treatments, and then, Western medicine, you hit like you do the Femara, and I forget the other one. I wasn't a good candidate for it because of asthma, but so I went through, and you're going in, it's a whole thing. You go in, you get labs. It's every month you're going in for your progesterone checks, and then you're taking this pill at this time, this pill at that time, da 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 da. And then
Right.
you're going
Right.
in and you're getting the transvaginal ultrasounds because they're wanting to check your follicles. And then they're like, yes, you got a really good follicle. And you're like, yes, oh my gosh, I have a follicle. And then you're, stressing your husband out and being very like clinical about your intimacy, and that's not
Right.
super fun. And that part can kind of put a strain on the marriage. And I'm very fortunate that my husband is like honest and like very open with me, and he would tell me like, this is not sexual.
Yeah.
This is, I'm having a hard time here, like, can we dial it back a little? But I was so desperate kind of for that control. So yeah, it anytime I know someone who struggles with fertility, I immediately feel like a special kinship with them because
I'm sure.
we're
And I
pretty
think
silent about it.
I think so. And so that is something that popped into my head while you were talking. Like I talk on this podcast, I've talked so many times about how powerful our words are, right? The power of life and death is in the tongue, right? Like our words
Yes.
are so powerful. And we talked about, that birth that you had, how powerful those words are, like, but you're doing it, right? It was really powerful for you. Like, yes, I am doing this, and I can do it. So just thinking about those words. But I think many of us don't think about the weight of our words, especially when we're just in casual conversation with people. And so I think it's very easy to see somebody that has like a gap, like say maybe they have an older child and like, oh, are you guys going to have more children? Yeah, we want to have more children. Like, okay, are you gonna have more children? Like, what's going on? And not
Oh
even thinking
yeah.
about what that does to you. If you're like, "Hey, when you guys gonna have another one?" And you're like, "Are you kidding me?" Like, yeah,
Yeah, you're like, I
yeah,
don't know. Even now, people ask me now, are you going to have more? And I'm like, I have no idea. You need to ask the Lord because he is driving
yes,
this train. It is not me. I don't know.
exactly.
If he gives me more, yes, absolutely, I will have more.
Yeah. Yeah, I think sometimes that we don't take that into consideration and stop and even think about it before we would ask somebody or say something to somebody about that. So, I've thought of you since then before just thinking about like, "Hey, be careful of those words that you're using when you talk to somebody. You don't know what they've been going through. You have no
Yes.
clue what's been going on."
I'm super like hyper aware of that now. It's kind of normal. You ask that couple I was telling you were at their wedding, people will ask them, "Oh, when are you gonna start having babies? When are you gonna start
Yeah,
trying, when are you gonna start having babies?" And it's like, get out. We should as a society just agree that we're not going to ask people their
I
fertility
agree.
stuff.
I
Like what
agree.
they're doing. It's none of your
Yeah.
business.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it's an uncomfortable conversation. And maybe I'm just rocking along, having a great day, not thinking about my fertility struggles. And you just brought it to the forefront. Now I'm a little bit bummed out.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm super in tune with that now. I try not to ever ask anyone unless they volunteer. I try not to ever ask anyone about when they're gonna have babies or how many they want, any of that, I
I
feel
think that's wise. I really think it is. Yeah. I would love for us to start, perpetuating that type of thought and conversation more. Let's just be thankful and joyful for what we have and let that be between them and the Lord and their spouse. And, if they want to share some of the struggles, then that's great. Like
yeah,
that as community, that's what I heard when you were talking about how your friends kind of shifted. Well, it's because you were building your community and you didn't realize there was even this niche of community that you needed and that you really because then when you found out you were pregnant again, that's who you immediately were talking to
yeah,
was that community.
yeah,
And I think that's what we do is we need to build up that community around ourselves. And that way, sure, if I want to share my struggles with you, I know you're going to be there and you're going to listen. Well, but other than that, like we don't that's between our partner and the Lord, and that's not something that we're like diving in. We're not going to be asking other personal questions like that. So why do we think that fertility and children is for some reason an open door? We
yes.
don't ask each other about like, did you have sex last night? We don't talk about, those types of things. So why in the world do we ask, those questions? I mean, I have been known to counter somebody with that before when they have asked, "So you're gonna have more children?" I'll be like, "Oh, so you're gonna have sex with your wife tonight?" And they're like, "Whoa," and I'm like, "Oh, I thought we were that close. Are we not?" Like, I
That's
I thought
awesome.
that's what was happening here. So, yeah, it's just that's not what we actually do, so we need to stop perpetuating this line of thought that that is okay.
Yeah, I found when I say, "I don't know, you'll have to ask the Lord because it's up to him," a lot of people it kind of slaps people because they're like, "Oh,
Good.
yeah, okay, it's not she's not deciding," so
Yeah,
yeah,
we do believe he is the creator of life, so, we can try all the things, but in the
right.
end, he is the one that's gonna breathe life into that baby.
We're on his schedule. We are not on anybody else's schedule. And if
Exactly.
nothing else has taught me that, it is my children, for sure.
Yeah, for sure, motherhood will definitely show you that.
Right, exactly.
Yes. So, let's get back for a second. We sidetracked a little bit. I'm so glad we did. Thank you for bringing all that up. So you told all your friends and you called and
Yes.
you talked to everybody, and then you said, I think we didn't quite hear that. You said you immediately texted the midwife.
Yes, like, okay, so I mean, the next day I texted, okay, so Sabrina, who is my doula, is now a midwife. Fast forward. And so I text her the next day and I'm like, hey, I am testing positive on a pregnancy test, but like I need to know for sure because here's me trying to get control again.
Mhm.
And Sabrina, being the amazing provider that she is, texted back and was like, come in. I don't
Right.
even think
Yeah.
she's working that day, but she knew. She knew my story. She knew
Mhm.
my daughter is 6 years old now, So she, did the blood test and she said, I'm going out of town this weekend, but I'm gonna keep up with it. It takes them, sometimes 24 to 48 hours. And this was a Friday. I don't know why I do everything on Fridays, but and it was a Friday. And so she's like, I'm gonna check. I don't know. I'll keep up with you. And I heard from her Sunday. I think she called. She did call, and I think she was out of town. She's like doing something, living her normal life, and took the time because she knew. And so I'm always really appreciative for people who like kind of take those extra steps because they know kind of like how
Yeah.
nervous and anxious and stuff I can
Yeah.
be.
He didn't wanna wait till a work day to tell you when
Right.
information she could tell you on a Sunday and
Yeah.
relieve some stress for you.
Yes, and that's kind of just another way that the natural birth community is so different from Western medicine because you go
Mhm.
in and like one person takes your labs and if you call to get the results, they like put you on hold and they don't even know who you are and the nurse will call you back and it's frustrating. And so she took my labs. She sent them off, and then she called me
Yeah.
on a Sunday. Hey Jennifer, you're pregnant, like your progesterone looks good. Because she had talked to me about some of the things, like, hey, because you're older, your progesterone might not be producing as much as it needs to, so we may need to supplement, whatever, kind of all of those things. And so
For
she's like,
sure.
all the labs are looking really good. So I don't think we need to do any of that. Um, you're definitely pregnant. And so I was like, great, that's amazing. And, I calculated, and she was going to be on vacation during that time because it was right over the holidays. I was due December 16th. So she was like, I'm taking that whole month off. And I was like, of course you are. So I just immediately then knew that I was using Jennifer Specht, who I already, knew from like raw milk and COVID and everything else. Um, so I texted her and I was like, hey, I'm 6 weeks pregnant. I want to get an appointment. I want to get on your books. And she was like, I think she was like, wow, it's calm down, ma'am. I don't need
Okay.
to see you for like 6 more weeks. And she did even say to me, like, well, that was super early. And, you know, I, I don't know. So like, that's me getting control again. So, I waited and I was definitely like pretty nervous the whole time. And I went and saw her at 12 weeks, and you were there, and talked to you guys about, my concerns. And always the issue for me is, can I get my body to birth? That was always
Yeah.
my mindset. I had the idea, like, I even told you, I'm not worried about the birth. I'm worried about getting to the birth.
Right.
That's
Yeah.
that's my concern. And so,
That's the goal.
yeah, yeah. So I just was really, really nervous. There was one time, oh gosh, sorry. Um, there there was one time like I felt like, oh, like, did my water just break early? I mean, there was like definitely some like scary times where I got into my head about, different things. And I was trying
Yeah.
not to bother her too much, but I would, and definitely was bothering like all my birth girlfriends like all the time. Oh, what do you think about this? What do you think about that? I was going and borrowing Courtney's Doppler. Courtney has a Doppler. I was borrowing that to listen for the heartbeat. I called Sammy and had her, oh yeah, I'm gonna go back. So in between having the labs and being able to see Jennifer, oh yeah, that's what it was. Okay, so like at my 12-week appointment, Jennifer had to reschedule for some reason. I think she had been in a birth.
I was gonna
Uh,
say probably a birth.
yeah, but probably good chance if Jennifer's not there, it's because she had to be at a birth. So I had told myself, okay, I'm gonna have to wait until 12 weeks to hear the heartbeat, and that's okay. Like at 12 weeks, you will get that confirmation and you will be okay. Because with Lily, the minute I got the test, they're doing a transvaginal ultrasound. I'm getting
Right. Right.
ultrasounds every month. I'm getting like constant confirmation that my baby is okay. And nothing horrible is happening. And so I knew this time I was not going to go the MD midwife partnership route. I knew I was going to go all midwife. And part of that was having that faith and, okay, I'm going to have to wait. I'll hear the heartbeat and it'll be okay. But in between, I'm not going to get all these checks. But then Jennifer had to reschedule, and I was like, okay, I cannot make myself wait another week. I'm freaking out. Like
Yeah.
that's it. My brain knew to wait a week or to 12 weeks. Now I need to wait until 13. So I called Sammy. It was like at night. I was like, can I come over and you listen, please? You help me. And she's like, yeah, come over. And so I came over, I went over to her house, and we're back there in her bedroom, and she's doing the Doppler on me. And I got to hear my baby's heartbeat for the first time, and so that was amazing.
Oh.
I know I have a recording of it, and you can hear Sammy counting. She
Oh,
is.
I love it.
I know it's really great. We'll always have that special memory. So anyway, there were just things like that throughout the pregnancy.
Yeah.
I would ask Ashley, like, I saw her like every Thursday for a homeschool co-op. And so I'm constantly asking her, what about this? What about this? Hey, I'm feeling that. What do you think? I'm hurting here. Is this something, and I'm sure she was probably like, actually knowing Ashley, she was like probably happy to answer all my questions.
I think she was. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Um, so yeah, all of my friends were so supportive. I mean, really, really supportive. It was really cool. Um, they all knew like what I had been through, and it was, I felt very loved throughout my whole pregnancy. I had one friend who threw a big sister shower for Lily because she's so
Oh.
much older. I know. and the girls threw me just a girl shower, and they, like, gave me, like, all the crunchy mom things, like coconut water and electrolyte mix and
Yeah.
some of the real candies that, are, like, not high in sugar, and so, anyway, yeah, so I'm plugging along, I'm doing good, I'm walking, like, regularly, so I'm not gaining a whole lot of weight, and I'm feeling pretty good. I'm 40, so I'm obviously feeling some of the things, but, I think I did pretty good, throughout my pregnancy, and so, yeah, there's one part. Okay, so we get closer, and I kind of, like, I think I did myself a little bit of a disservice because people would say, like, "When are you due?"
And
And
you
I would say,
told
"Well,
them?
my due date is December." Yeah, I told them it all.
That's that's where you went wrong.
That's hilarious. Okay, yes. Well, so I made 2 mistakes because I would say, "Well, December 16th," but because, my daughter
Think you're
was
gonna go
3
early.
weeks early, like, I just want, like, it's a 5-week window here, people, so I just need you to not I have a lot of things, I do, like, the raw milk drop and, work stuff and all this other stuff, so I basically was, like, trying to tell people, "Don't even expect anything out of me for this 5-week window because I don't know what's gonna happen, just
Right.
leave me alone." Um, and so it was right it was the Friday after Thanksgiving that my due date window started. And so my dad was in town and he kept being like, "Hey, I hope you go into labor while I'm here." And so I was very much feeling like a watched pot. And,
Mhm.
I'm like, I should not have done that to myself, which I understand. He was excited, but I had rented an Airbnb. Oh, yeah. So our house is fairly small. Um, and, like, for my husband's comfort, I don't think he would be very comfortable with people coming in. With Lily, we had planned a home birth, but we ended up with the birth center birth, and we realized through that experience that that was better for us because we weren't in his personal space.
Okay.
He had his stuff that he dealt with while I was in labor and while his child was being born. Um, he has his own emotional baggage because of my
For
fertility.
sure.
So being removed and being able to go somewhere else without people, like, invading his space, he kind of learned that that was, like, really good for him and that was what he needed. So we wanted a birth center birth with our son, with Grady. And but the birth center here wasn't a good option for us. So we made our own. I rented an Airbnb. Yeah, and so that was another part of it was like, well, when do I rent this Airbnb for? Because I have a
You
history
have a
of going
5-week
in there, right?
window.
Yes, like I have a history. Like, even talking with Jennifer about it, she was like, normally I would say like 39 weeks to 41 weeks. Like that's kind of the window. And she was like, but with your history, I think maybe you need to go. You're right, right. And
Who
so,
knows?
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So, and with Lily, I wasn't ready as far as like the car seat and kind of like some of those things. We didn't even have the crib set up with Lily, like, which of course crib, like, haha, boy, if I could have told, don't use a crib now, like that's the joke. So, um, anyway, we didn't have that set up,
It's
like
a
I
great piece of
don't.
furniture to throw clothes on and to change diapers.
A great
Okay.
laundry catcher. Yes. So anyway, I went to like when we came home with Lily, my father-in-law came over at like 11 o'clock, and my father-in-law and husband are like putting together the crib. I'm just sitting here like with this new baby. So anyway, I went off on a tangent there, but so we wanted to do an Airbnb, so I rented the Airbnb pretty close by, super close to tea to go so I could get my tea. But so we rented that and I ended up my dad came to visit for Thanksgiving, like I was saying, and I thought, well, I mean, I've already got this place. Let me just add on 3 more days before my due date window starts. And he can just stay there. And I can just kind of start setting it up a little bit early. And so that's what I did.
Mhm.
He was here Thanksgiving and then my due date window started Friday. And so we spent that time setting up everything. Bringing in all the stuff on the list Jennifer gave me, putting in like my clothes and foods and waters and all that kind of stuff. So I
Yeah.
I had more control of that aspect of it this time, which I haven't really like realized until right now. But so yeah, that's pretty funny. So I had like way more control of the start. Um, so yeah, okay, then I think I've covered everything up until labor, right? I'm good. I'm gonna
So
launch. Okay, so um, that Tuesday, so okay, the 28th, the morning of November 28th, early in the morning, it was a Tuesday, I start having contractions. They're like random and not anything, but I'm up. And so I'm talking to the girls and I'm like, is this prodromal labor or Braxton Hicks? I mean, we're like deeply analyzing like what these even are, because I do have friends that, have experience with prodromal and other things. And so I'm like, what's going on? And it's all new for me. This is the opposite of what happened with Lily. It just with Lily, it was like, boop, your water broke, and here we go. But I was having like some of those earlier things.
mhm.
I didn't get a good night's sleep that day. And then early Wednesday, that afternoon I had like a couple of contractions in a pattern. And I'm asking the birth girls, I'm like, hey, what constitutes a pattern? Like, how long does something have to go on for it to be a pattern? Because I don't remember the exact
That's a
timing.
good question.
Yeah, yeah. I didn't know. Yeah. And so I knew it wasn't like this is labor, but I didn't know if it was like early labor. I didn't, know. Um, and I just wonder, like, at what point, how many babies do you have to have before you're like, I know what this is? But yeah,
Didn't happen to me. I
um,
was in labor denial in my last one.
we're-
I seriously, he was like, "We need to call the midwife," and I threw my phone at him and told him, "No, you do it. I am not calling."
that is so funny. That's that
Yeah.
makes me
So
feel a
I
little
don't
bit
know.
better. Because I've been feeling like, gosh, I'm just so out of touch with my body. But so yeah, I asked the girls
No.
what constitutes a pattern, and I think I was like every 20 minutes, for a couple of hours, and then I'm like, yeah, that's
Yeah.
a pattern. I think I'd call that a pattern. And so I just texted Jennifer and I was like, I don't think it's anything, but I want you to know, like, this is what's going on. And she was like, yeah, okay, cool. Get that. She would all at this point. I noticed anytime I talked to her, she would say, get some rest and drink plenty of water.
Yes.
So
Of course.
she said, like, every time, get some rest and drink plenty of water. She became very motherly. She was very motherly the whole time. But then but like the constant reminding me, get some rest and drink some water. It's adorable. Um, so get some rest, drink some water. So that was Tuesday, and then Wednesday happens, and the same thing. It's like 3 or 4 in the morning. I'm getting woken up because I'm having some contractions, but there's like nothing really that big of a deal. They're pretty intense, like they hurt, but
Yeah.
it's mainly just waking me up. I'm mainly just not getting any sleep. And so that's 2 nights, I don't get very good sleep. And then Thursday, I'm like, or Wednesday night, I tell my husband, I'm like, I'm gonna go to bed early tonight. I'm gonna get a good night's sleep and I'm just gonna reset. I've got crummy sleep and I just in case I'm going into labor, pretty soon. I want to be rested. I went to bed at 9:30, which for me is crazy early. I went to bed, I fell asleep, and like 1 a.m. I wake up and I'm having those same contractions, except this time they didn't stop. They just kept going and kept going. And I was like, is this labor? Like, what's that? And I just sit in my bed like all night long, like playing on my phone and reading and crocheting and, oh, hey, what I don't know. What am I doing here?
That amazing rest you were getting, right?
Right. Yes, exactly. And so I go and I drink an electrolyte drink. Because I feel like, oh well, hey, maybe this is a dehydration. The girls had told me that at one point.
Sure. That's
So,
possible.
yeah, so I drink an electrolyte drink. And it doesn't really change anything. And it's Thursday. We have homeschool co-op on Thursdays, and it was really important to me because my daughter's 6, so she's like super aware. She's very happy we're having a baby. She's so excited. She had been praying for a baby for years, asking for a baby. She was a little bit mad that it was a brother, but she's okay now.
She got
But
over it.
yeah, yeah, she's fine now. But so I was really aware of her. I didn't want like the feeling of not being enough and those sorts of things. I didn't want her schedule to like change a lot. I mean, I knew it was going to change a lot, but what I could help, I didn't want to change. Uh,
Right.
and so I was like, it's homeschool co-op. I need to get her to homeschool co-op. And I had a contingency plan with my friends, hey, if it's at homeschool co-op, this is what's going to happen. Which was really funny because Ashley always talked about if she was in labor at homeschool co-op, what she would do. And it ended up being me that was in labor at homeschool co-op. So we're driving to homeschool co-op and I'm in labor. I'm definitely, they're regular, they're consistent, I'm kind of like, so, but I don't know why, but I didn't want to call Jennifer because what if it was another one of those like false alarms and I just can't get control of it this time because it's dehydration or whatever. So like I got a tea to go and I get a drink and I call Sammy, who's my doula, but also my good friend. And so I'm like, hey, dude, I think I'm in labor, but like, I think I'm mentally blocking. I think I'm in denial about being into labor. I said that to her. And I said, I think it's because I have to get Lily to homeschool co-op and my mind is not letting me focus on the labor until I get her settled. Like I need to get her settled and in position. And I know that she's taken care of. I think that's what's happening. And so
Mhm.
I was like, can you call Jennifer? Because I don't know, something in my brain was like, don't call Jennifer because then that's gonna make it super real. And I need you to not make it super real. I need you to focus on this child. I don't know. Brains are weird.
Yep.
So yeah. So I drive her to my friend Asher's house, which is where homeschool co-op was, and I walk in and I'm like, hey y'all, like I think I'm in labor, but I'm not sure. I'm just gonna like stay here for a minute and like see if it goes away. you know, sure they all thought that was hilarious.
Oh, I'm sure.
Yeah, yeah. And so I talked to Ashley, hey, you're gonna take Lily, right? And my mother-in-law's, I kind of plan all that out. Here's we're enacting this plan that we had, for if I needed you to take care of Lily. And so Asher like makes me a slice of bread with honey and butter on it. It was amazing. Of course, her bread is always amazing, but it was special amazing that day. So I ate that and I drank a little bit, but like it kept going on. And so I was like, okay, I'm acknowledging this now. Let's go. And so I go to the car and I'm driving and I call Jennifer and I'm like, hey, I think I'm in labor. And she's like, yeah, I think you are too. like, because she had talked to Sammy. So that was a weird thing to hear. But so I don't know. I should ask Sammy, like, what was their conversation? Because she definitely was like, yeah, this is not a surprise to me. I already know. And she's like, yeah, I'm in the car. I'm headed into town already. I was like, okay, do I need to call Madon? Like, what am I doing? And I'm like, I need to go get my husband, but all the stuff was already at the birth center or the Airbnb. And so then I called
Our
my,
makeshift center.
yes, our makeshift birth center, DIY birth center. I call my husband and he's like, okay, but like, is this actually it? Cause it's a pretty busy day at work. Bro, what? Like, I don't know. It feels like it, but who knows? Like, I
That's
don't know.
true. You don't know.
Right. And then he's like, oh, I'm driving and I'm kind of struggling, Madonna. I'm kind of struggling to drive. I'm kind of like, oh man, am I pulling over? But like I muscle through. And so, I get to him and I'm like, I need you to get these things and get them in the car and let's go. And so, but he called me back and he's like, hey, your water hasn't broken. So you can't be in labor. And I was like, no, okay, right. I know that's our experience, but you know, your
Mhm.
water can break at any point and you could still be in labor.
The
Uh,
majority of people, that's not how they go into labor.
right, right. So, I go and pick him up and swing, and I grab me a tea, and then, we go to the Airbnb, and you guys are like waiting on us. Um, so it's kind of,
It
I'm
was
already,
kind of funny to show up before our client was there. That was a little funny. We're like, okay, all right.
we're here, we're just hanging out.
This was the
Yeah,
intended place, right?
yeah. So, we get there and, he kinda helps get me in and get me settled. He has to go back to the house to, like, just close up some things, with work or whatever. His work ethic is, like, through the roof, and so, um, he leaves me at the Airbnb. I didn't shower because I had just showered before homeschool, but, like, I got in my comfy gown just like before, I'm like, "Yes, I'm doing this. I've got food, I've got snacks." Um, and kinda, like, parts of it, Madonna, like, at this point, I'm gonna start, like, there's holes. So, like, if you remember, feel free to fill them in because
Okay.
my brain, like, gives me holes when there's, like,
It's
trauma.
okay, you're still postpartum.
Yeah. Yeah, that too. Um,
It
so
is interesting though that you mentioned that because we've talked about like trauma holes before, but maybe not in that exact terminology, but definitely how, when things are very heightened and when there are things that definitely went not maybe not as we would have liked, for sure, or some type of trauma event that you do have blank spots a lot of times. It's like your body is just like, nope, not that.
oh, yeah.
Nope, not that. And there'll be times like somebody will tell you something like you're like, that happened 'cause I don't really remember that happening. And then if you add labor itself to it, I mean, labor can be that way itself. Labor
Yeah,
can just be like you're so focused on what you're doing, like you don't see other things happening around you and you don't see, all these different and then you'll be like, "Oh, you did that? Oh, you did." This because you are like in labor land and you're not focusing. So if you add trauma and different things on top of that as well, it makes perfect sense that you've got some holes.
yeah, it's a definite brain defense mechanism, and even I mean, we'll get into it in a minute, but even in this birth, I have a trauma hole with you. Remember, you were telling me, when this is why I was telling you, and I don't remember you saying that. Anyway, so yeah, and trauma holes are a super thing, and that's
Oh, yeah.
definitely how my brain handles, intense situations of trauma. It's just holes, and so yeah.
Yeah.
Um, so I'm at the Airbnb, and I mean, I think we're just chilling, like, we're just hanging out and
Pretty
talking.
much.
Yeah, at one point, I get hungry. So, you guys, I could tell, like, got a little bit miffed at me because I kept trying to do things for myself. I noted, like, Sammy for sure definitely was like, "What are you doing?" I tried to go make my sandwich. She's like, "I'll make your sandwich," and I definitely saw you guys, like, exchange a look because I was gonna make my own sandwich. But, yeah, I have a sandwich and I my water isn't breaking, and so I'm really uncomfortable, um, which was very different. I mean, I was uncomfortable before, but I was in very active labor before when I got to the point where I was uncomfortable. But I wasn't in, like, my water hadn't broken, I hadn't transitioned, I wasn't in kind of that final stage, but I was massively uncomfortable, you know?
Yeah.
I could not get comfortable at all. Um, I was struggling, and
I think you were also frustrated that it hadn't intensified more.
yes, yes.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, and I even told my husband at one point before my water broke, I was just like, it's not getting going. And I was like, I told my brain it was okay now. took care of everything. Like, why, brain, aren't you kicking it off here? Yeah, I was definitely kind of like, scope, what's going on?
Yeah.
Um, so I think I took a bath or a shower to try to, like, help it. I can't remember if it was at that point or later, but I mean, I was uncomfortable. Um, and, Sammy was pushing on my hips and I mean, she was, like, pushing the dog out of my hips, and it was helping. Um, but I just was super uncomfortable. It's not normal for me to need that kind of, like, re relief help.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, I was frustrated for sure. Um, and I guess that's because, like, with Lily, when contractions started, like, they started and we were going. But I knew it was because my water wasn't breaking, and we had even had, like, a conversation at that point about potentially breaking my water, but I didn't really want to do that because I didn't want any interventions. Like, I mean,
Right.
that's
And there
still
are
an
risks.
intervention.
There's always, yeah, intervention.
Yeah,
And it is hard to when your only experience is one way, and so you have these expectations, and whenever those expectations aren't being met, it's really hard to be like, "But it's okay, this can be completely different," because all your experiences is that other one, and so it's difficult to talk to yourself and be like, "No, no, this is normal. This is completely normal," because inside you're like, "But this wasn't normal last time. This isn't how things went last time." And so that internal struggle, I know, can happen a lot of times.
Yes. Yeah, I mainly felt like I was yeah, I mean, I so a lot of my friends have a lot of kids, and I've heard their birth stories, and so it can be all kinds of different ways. So, like, I knew it was possible that my water wouldn't break the same way, obviously. Um, but I also felt like, man, I was in labor for a long time for my water not to break, or like I felt like it was strong enough and intense enough um that it should have broken, but it wasn't. But so, I talked to Jennifer, but I still didn't I was trying to avoid it, and I'm still messaging with the girls in the group text, and like I said, Ashley's a doula, according, and so they're saying this and that, and Ashley's like, they could break your water. I think Jennifer would tell you if she felt like that was necessary. And so all of those things were like kind of helping me keep somewhat grounded and somewhat like this is normal, this is okay. Uh so then, Cody comes back, and I lay down with him upstairs, and I think I told you guys I was gonna try to nap, but
Mhm.
I don't nap anymore. That was a pre-mom privilege there. But so I wanted to just go kind of just lay down with my husband and just,
Mhm.
you know, I don't know, be cuddled.
For sure.
So yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah. So we went upstairs and we laid down, and that's why I was like, man, I'm just not getting going. Like it's just I feel like my body's just not starting, and I'm
Mhm.
struggling, Cody, and I didn't feel like, oh, I'm struggling to get through this. I felt like, oh, my body is struggling to do this. My body is not doing it.
Do you think that also came from a little deep rooted about just fertility struggles in the first place and having that thought that my body is not working the way it's supposed to? My body can't do this well?
Maybe. I feel like I went into it pretty arrogant because with Lily, it was fairly easy. I mean, birth is in and of itself is hard. I don't want to discount that, but as far as births go, my first one with Lily was easy. I did not have,
Yeah.
you know, huge struggles. And while it was painful, like I got this amazing little beautiful baby at the end. So like
Right.
I don't know. So I was very like confident in this one. I just my body was gonna do what my body needed to do, and I was gonna have a baby at the end. And like I don't my body didn't do what it needed to do. It wasn't doing it. So
It
maybe
was. It just wasn't doing it on the time frame that you expected.
yeah, yeah. So, I mean, maybe it was related. I mean, I'm not consciously aware if it is. But that's possible. I mean, I've never considered that. Um, so, but then, things like really intensify, and I'm like, oh, and my
Mm.
water does end up breaking, and I do it like it's the big dramatic movie one, not like the first one. And so I called you guys, and it definitely was like, okay, now here we go. Like this is, I think the expectation of everyone in the room was like, okay, now we're having a baby. And so, I'm getting serious, not that I wasn't before, but I'm like, okay, here we go. And I was like feeling like, okay, I need to push, I need to push. Oh, well, and I threw up. So I start throwing up, which I was prepared to throw up at least once because I had done that with Lily in transition, so I thought like, here we go, I'm gonna barf and we're gonna get going. But I just kept throwing up over and
I
over.
know.
It was
Yes.
awful.
It
So
was. You poor thing.
like I didn't even know that could happen. So
Yeah.
much throwing up. And I
It
was
was a lot.
really sensitive to the light. Like I kept my eyes closed the whole
Yeah.
time. I did not do that with Lily. Um, it just everything was so bright. Even opening my eyes, it just I don't know. I can't even explain it. My my body did not want to open my eyes. So I just kept my
Okay.
eyes closed unless I absolutely had to like see to readjust or whatever. And I just kept throwing up over and over, and it just would not stop.
Oh,
That part was
no.
so awful.
Yes, it was.
Yeah. So, and I am struggling. I'm trying to push, I'm pushing, and I am not like when I'm pushing, I'm not feeling like I'm doing anything. I'm not feeling like he's moving at all. Um, and so, I think I get in the shower again, kind of maybe that would help me. Um, sit on the toilet. I tried several different, I think we tried the cub, I tried all kinds of different things, and
Yeah.
I just never really felt like it got going. Just never really felt like, okay. And the expectation in the room was like, oh, we're going to have a baby any minute now.
It
And
felt like it. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. And I definitely felt that same way. And I definitely felt all of the expectations, like, but I also felt like I'm not doing this. And so there was kind of a little bit of a disconnect there where, I'm like, okay, I should be having a baby any minute. But then it's also like, okay, well, I'm not doing anything to have this baby. So,
Mhm.
uh, and then I'm gonna probably mess up this part because this is where it does get a little bit fuzzy for me, because it got scary. But so, you do the Doppler, which you've been doing regularly, and there was a decel, and that scared deceleration, I guess I should. So his heart rate decelerated, um, which can be a sign of like stress on the baby.
An
And
issue. Yeah.
yeah, and I also know that it can somewhat be normal. So, I immediately in my brain, I am now in full panic mode
Yeah.
because my baby is at risk now. Like that, I'm super aware of that, and I'm not really focusing on anything else at this point. And I think Jennifer checked me at that point, and or I panicked, but I think we thought I was gonna have the baby like right then or
Yeah, we
something.
wanted to check was birth imminent because if baby decelled, but you were pushing and baby and was, pretty close to being born, then that would kind of explain some things and, okay, then let's have a baby. But if that was happening, but baby wasn't right there and you weren't, about to push a baby out, then we gotta consider, okay, what's going on? Why is the baby getting stressed out somewhat?
Yeah, yeah. Okay, that makes sense. So Jennifer checks me, and at some point the oxygen thing, you turned on the oxygen because you thought we were having a baby, and that also scared me. Um, but Jennifer checks and she's like, "You're at an 8." And like it's just I'm immediately deflated at that point. And I just look at my husband, and he will tell you that he knew in that moment without words. He knew I was telling him we're leaving. Because I had been struggling the whole time, like, and
Yeah.
I didn't struggle physically. Like I was able to handle the pain and the discomfort the first time, but this time I was struggling with it. It was
I
just
think
go ahead.
you were feeling and I think you talk about pushing, but you were feeling that urge, like, your body had been like you had been like, "I'm gonna trust my body, I'm gonna listen to my body," and, besides all the stupid throwing up that you had to do, like, your body felt like, "Hey, we need to push, like, we're pushing,"
Yes.
and
Yeah,
so
oh,
you were listening
absolutely.
to your body, and so then I think that probably, like, really I can understand how that deflated you so much, could be like, "Well, but wait, my body has been trying to push how am I only 8 if my body's been trying to push? That makes no sense." And then when you have that whole heightened expectation, thinking, "Hey, my body's pushing, so that means we're about to have a baby any second." And we're all thinking that too. And yeah, and I'll go back. I mean, because I love to be like really raw, with the listeners. Like I thought about that too. Like, is there a way that I could have more quietly turned on the oxygen? Because I felt that too. I felt like, oh, I made that a little heightened when it didn't need to be then. In my clinical brain, I'm
I think
thinking we
it's
have a
just
baby
me.
that's decelerating. If he's about to be born, then I wanna make sure I have oxygen ready and turned on in case we need to help him out a little bit. But I didn't consider how that would, because the room was very quiet, and how me doing that action would heighten your level of awareness and, make you feel like, "Oh, something's really wrong." And I just wanna fully acknowledge that. Like, I've thought about that since then several times, like, "Okay, be careful," because our actions are so powerful in such a heightened state. Just a little action one way or the other can really change everything for you. And so you had a lot of things kind of like check marking up against you because you thought you're about to have a baby any minute. Your body has been pushing. We had the deceleration. We're wanting to make sure this baby is safe. And then you realize, like, I am not about to have a baby. I mean, like, this baby is not just about to pop out of me. Oh my goodness, what's going on? I need to figure out. And so then so you looked at your husband, you knew that he knew exactly what you were thinking, and you guys made the decision that you wanted to switch, locations.
Yes. So, well, I didn't really want to. It's
Right,
really
that
I
was
needed
probably
to.
poor
Yeah,
wording,
yeah,
yeah.
with the oxygen, so for me, it was like, with the deceleration, uh, like, okay, he's maybe in a little bit of danger, and then you turn on the oxygen, she thinks she's going to need the oxygen. He is going to be having problems breathing.
Yeah.
And so I think, I think I'm probably, because I have such a fear when it comes to, are my children going to survive? I think that, I'm probably just the exception there as far as laboring moms. But maybe just tell, like, in the future,
I
hey,
don't
I
think so.
may
I
have to
think
turn on the oxygen. It's not because I think I'm gonna need it. I just need to turn it on for my license. Or just tell, so that it, because if I would have heard something like that before, I would have been like, oh, it's standard procedure. And I could have dismissed it. But I don't remember that happening with Kelly. I don't know if she turned on the oxygen, but I heard that oxygen hiss, and it, you know, oh
yeah.
gosh, we're gonna need oxygen. And I'm an
I
asthmatic.
appreciate the feedback.
My mom has COPD, so maybe it's just me. Maybe it's just me that gets triggered by the sound of the oxygen. But yeah, in that moment, it was like, oh my gosh, she thinks he's gonna need oxygen.
Mm,
And I'm freaking out, and I'm only an 8, and what is happening? And I'm throwing up all the time. Like, I just knew, like, he was in danger, and my body is not going to get him out in the next couple of minutes because I'm only at 8, and I gotta go. I have to go to the hospital because
yeah,
I cannot, when, if death is a risk factor, like, I'm not gonna do
right.
it. And if it's nominal, I get told that sometimes about some of the health choices I make. Oh, well, I'm like, death is a risk factor, and they're like, or a risk, and oh, well, it's nominal. It's still there.
It's
Like,
still
it's
there
not
for sure.
zero. I'm not
And
gonna
I
do it.
I understand too, like, if you're thinking like, "Hey, this baby," because at home we're doing intermittent monitoring, and generally, that's absolutely fine. But if you have a baby who is showing us some signs of some, issues, and we're not able to resolve it, we changing positions and doing some things differently doesn't resolve that issue, then yeah, we need to go somewhere where we can do, continuous monitoring and make sure, that baby is doing well.
Yeah,
And so yeah, going to the hospital was your decision, and I feel like, I do feel like, because we knew how passionate you were about natural birth, that I do feel like we did kind of ask you just to verify, like, "Are you positive? Like, this is what you
yeah,
want to do?" Because, we know it's hard when you're in that moment, but also, we wanna respect your decision, your wishes, but knowing your mindset, we were just like, "Are you positive this is what you
yeah,
wanna do?" And as soon as you told us, "Yes, positive," then we're, "Okay, let's go.
yeah, yeah. And I
Let's see
definitely
what we
appreciate
can do."
that because, I could see, like, needing that little reminder. But yeah, so we called the ambulance because I did not feel like I could even, like, sit in a car. So we call the ambulance, and we get there, and blah blah, all that entails. And immediately they're just swarming me, which is, you know, what you want if you're there, but it is kind of a lot. Um, so, they start me on Pitocin, but I am still struggling really bad. And so I did get an epidural, but it takes a little I felt like it took him a little while.
It took quite a while, and you're still throwing up.
I'm still throwing oh, no, don't
Yes, and they
stop, and then
try to
they're
give
even giving
you
me yes,
yes,
Zofran,
yes,
I'm even
and you're
getting
still throwing
Zofran.
up.
I'm still just all over the place, man, not all over the place, but
But
nonstop.
yeah, yeah.
Yes, yeah, ugh, what was up with that?
I
Uh,
don't know, your body was definitely reacting in an interesting way.
it was, and then that's another part of it, I think that it was like, "Okay, this is weird, like, why are we doing this?" You know, "What's going on in my body?" So yeah, I'm definitely like I go into a time warp, now that we're in the hospital and we started I think at like 10 or 11 in the morning and like we're now into the nighttime. It's dark outside. I think there's like 11 at night. And then now we're overnight. I have no idea like what time it actually is. But so I finally get the epidural. That was wild. Could not feel or operate the lower half of my body. That was so new. Um I can understand why some women may choose that route, like especially if you don't know that it does actually have like side effects and consequences. So, but it's a very strange sensation because then everybody else has to like move your legs for you and
Right,
everything else.
yes.
But I'm now like I'm getting relief. I'm not even like really feeling my contractions, and I think I just sleep off and on. Like I'm sleeping or I'm throwing up for a little bit, but I'm on the monitor, I'm on the continuous monitor, and there's like all these screens behind me that y'all can see, but I can't see. Um, and for a little bit, like we have calm, I kind of feel like. I don't know if that's, but that was my
I feel
perspective.
like there was for a little bit.
Yeah, yeah. For a little bit, there was calm, and I just kind of settled, and but we did kind of I had periods of deceleration, but the nurse would come in or you guys, oh, I want to so you and Madon, I mean you and Madon, you are Madon, you and Jennifer came to the hospital with and Sammy. So all three of you guys came to the hospital with me. Also, you guys totally cleaned up the Airbnb. I don't know how like when you did that, but like Tinkerbelled it and
Mhm.
like when I was like, I need to go clean the Airbnb a couple days later, and Sammy was like, I think we handled it. When?
Yep,
Because it
we
felt
did.
like my perception was I got to the hospital and you guys were there right behind me, but I mean, apparently you weren't, which is fine. But
We were pretty quick. But there takes time in the ambulance, and they're doing things and stuff, and so we
yeah,
just ran while they were doing all your stuff in the ambulance and ran and got it done real fast so then we could follow you.
you guys like totally cleaned it all the way up. So yeah, I felt like there was calm, but you guys were still having to like, you guys are moving me around and this and that to kind of like help because changing positions, I guess, makes
Well,
the
it just depends. Is the baby on the cord, and that's what's
right.
going on, and why we're having the decelerations, and so if that's the case, if movement changes it, then we're like, "Oh, 'cause that's probably the case." And so
Yeah,
that's why we kept, like, rotating you and kept moving you and switching your position, like, "Okay, there, baby's fine now." Because he would drop, but then he'd come right back up, It's like, "Okay, we're good."
yeah,
But then we
yes.
kept
Yeah,
yeah,
we were
and
on this
so it
kind
was
of like, but we just moved me a little bit. Y'all would have to move me, which was really bizarre.
mhm.
Um, but y'all would move me and then it would be okay.
Yeah.
And they had shown that like my white blood cells, oh, remember they said I had a fever because it was like 99.1 and they wouldn't let me have a blanket, but I was
I forgot
freezing.
about that.
Yes. I'm like, that's
Yeah.
not a fever. That's nothing. Like, get some real problems. I don't have a fever. Uh, and they would not I was freezing. I was like shivering, like physically chattering
Right, and they did not
everywhere.
want you to have a
They did not
yeah,
want me
I
to
do
have a
remember that
blanket.
now.
That's so
Yeah.
annoying. Give me a blanket. I'm cold. Anyway, so yeah, I felt like we had calm for a little bit, and even Cody is, Sammy left. It's middle of the night. She has 4 kids, so yes, girl, go. Y'all are just sitting around staring at me. But then Cody said, "Hey, like I'm gonna go and email work. I'm gonna head to the house real fast. I'm gonna email work. Like nothing's happening here. This is boring. I'm gonna go. I'm just gonna let them know. Like I'm not gonna be there in the morning. I don't know what's going on, but I'm gonna let them know. We're now into Friday again. Me and Fridays. So we're now into Friday morning, the wee hours.
And it makes sense because a lot of times you get into the hospital, you get the epidural, things settle down, and you need rest. So,
Yeah,
because you've already done all this laboring, and it's like, okay, you get the epidural, now you can rest. Okay, take your rest before we get to pushing. So, that makes sense that that's a good time that people could do a few things, he could do what he needed to do with work, that makes sense.
Yes, yeah. Um, yeah. So he leaves. I'm gonna go, and then things get like pretty crazy because they like a deceleration happens, and I mean, y'all have me on like one of those like y'all are just pulling the sheets back and forth on either side, and I'm just
Pretty
sitting
much what was happening.
rolling me around.
Yes.
So bizarre. Like somebody else is just totally in charge of my body, and I'm just being rolled around. But this time, when you guys are rolling me around, they're struggling to find the heartbeat at all, or to get it back
Yeah,
up. I can't
yeah,
remember.
baby kept kicking off the monitor. Well, we couldn't figure out if baby was actually having that deep of a decels or kicking off the monitor and it was kicking onto you. And so I think because that can happen that the baby kicks off the monitor or moves, you know, and so then it picks up your heartbeat instead. And I think that was one of the things that we were trying to figure out is that's what's happening here, or is baby actually decelling, you know, that deep and what's going on. And so we kept trying our usual tricks that we were doing and those tricks weren't working.
Yeah, yeah. Um, so that gets really scary. And then they're
It got
calling in
very
more
intense.
people. Yeah, it got real scary, like real fast. And they're calling in more people. And I mean, people
Right.
are running into the room. And I I'm a medical biller professionally, so I understand what that means. I We do the neonatology billing for the provider there. Like I understand what all of these people running into the room right now means because I'm not actively pushing. This is getting really scary. Um, and the doctor comes in the room, and I'm pretty scared, and they can't find it, and they're pushing, like nurse after nurse is pushing each other out of the way. I can tell we're like going up the levels of experience and seniority within the nurses, because you get out of the way. You've only been here 2 years, I've been here 10. Like they're trying
Right.
new things, and they're not finding a heartbeat, or it's really low.
It's
And
low. It's
and you
low.
guys are staring at the monitors because you guys have been pushed off at this point. But I see y'all, and y'all are just staring at the monitor, and I can just kind of see like you almost are like trying to will it with your face, you
Yeah.
know. And I was so scared.
And it makes sense.
Yeah, I was so scared. Whew. So I just
I
looked at
think
this nurse. Oh, go ahead.
no, I was just gonna say, I think at that moment too, I think I turned it to because Cody was standing there so scared as well. And he could see like because he's just watching all these people rushing to his wife and trying to do all these things. And he had just got back, if I recall right.
Yes, yes,
And this was
that's what he
happening when he
said.
got back.
Yes, it was
Yeah.
normal,
And
and they came back, and I'm surrounded.
right. Yeah, and so I remember, like, my heart just going out to him, and so I kinda stepped to the side to talk with him and just let him know, like, "Hey," because in all I mean, you're looking like everybody's trying to prep you for a C-section. That's all the everybody that run in there, like, you can tell the nurses are like, "We're headed back." Like, we're running,
Yes.
and they are, like, starting to grab things, and I remember looking to Cody and just say, like, "Hey, I want you to prepare yourself. They're getting ready. They're probably gonna take her back any minute because we need to get baby out because of what we're seeing on the monitor."
Yeah, it was hard. I haven't actually like talked about this. This is the first time I'm talking. I maybe should have like had this conversation so I wouldn't be so emotional. But yeah,
Emotions
so
aren't bad.
I know. Um, yeah, I'm so scared. And there is this nurse right here, and I just looked at her and I said, "Just take him, just take him." And like I knew, I just get him out, section, whatever. That's not what I want, but like let's go. We have to, he this is enough danger, and she's in it, boom, sides up, like we're throwing the IV bags onto the bed, like
Yep.
we're going. And
Yep.
she turns to the doctor, who's kind of just back over there while they're doing everything, um and he says we're going. And I've since heard from you and Jennifer that like he starts putting on gloves because he thinks I'm pushing out a baby. He doesn't understand that, like, I've now consented to a section.
Yeah.
And he says, "Whoa, stop. Wait, why do you want a section?" Or not exactly that, but what's going on?
Yeah,
And
there was some type of a connection there, or, misinterpretation of what was happening, because the nurses realized, like, "You just consented to a C-section. Let's go. We're going back to a C-section." The doctor thinks, "Hey, we're about to push out a baby," but the way the nurses are going, and they're like, "No, she said, let's go C-section." He's like, "Whoa, whoa, whoa. Why are you wanting to do that?"
yeah, yeah. And so that question in that moment makes me like, I pause and I'm like, I feel really stupid because, it's like, well, because of what's going on, sir. you know? And I just look at him and I'm like, I don't have an answer. I don't have a clinical answer because I don't want to bury another child. I just want my baby here. And I felt really dumb, like, because he's like this doctor who does sections for a living, like scheduled plan sections, is like, wait, why do you want a section? And he's questioning me. And so I feel really stupid, and I'm like, okay, and like in that moment, I'm like, okay, maybe I've overreacted, and these nurses are okay with that, but for some reason this guy's asking me, and so we all just take a step back, and then oh, he's the monitor, okay, that's right. Then he says, hey, let's use this monitor that we can actually put in on him right
Yeah,
now,
do an internal. Yeah.
and I'm like, oh, yeah, oh sure, let's do that. And so we do that, and they find the heartbeat. Now it's still decelerating and going up and down and up and down and everything, but it's okay. I think, and I don't remember this as a whole. I don't remember kind of what happened from there. So do you want to?
What I well, no, like, let me see if I can remember too. I do remember, like, if you could, because you saying you felt stupid because the doctor, asked you that question. But I will tell you, from the person standing back and seeing the whole room and what was happening, those nurses' jaws dropped, because they were like,
Really?
yeah, like, they were like, why are you even asking her that? Like, let's go. Let's go to a C-section. Like, oh my goodness, I can't even believe he's like pausing this. I could see the look on their faces. They're like, how are we not going for a C-section? You
Even
know?
Jennifer, her reaction, she said, like in hindsight, she's like, when he's like, "Why do you want a section?" She's like, "Isn't that what you do here?"
Yeah. And it's pretty surprising that a doctor would be like, stop and be like, why? What are you doing? Because so often we have seen and heard stories and stuff that the doctor's like, hey, let's just go C-section. Let's just go. Let's just do it. And there's no question about it. But the fact that he like paused and was just like, why? What are you doing that for? Like, what's happening? Now in hindsight, we've learned a little bit more information about how all that happened. But at the time, we're just like, the doctor is standing there, he's staring at the monitor, he sees all this chaos happening, and he was like, What is happening? Why do you want that? Like, no." And so I think what happened after he did the internal monitor, like, then he could verify this is baby's heart rate. And there's no way we're picking up mom's heart rate, is only baby. And yes, you're right. From what I remember, he did have some D cells still, but he would come right back. So he would come right back up. He'd, what we call, like, bounce back. He'd get down deep a bit, but he'd bounce right back up. And I remember the doctor just decided to just, like, he had his arms crossed and he's just staring at the screen. And I don't think he moved for 20 minutes.
He didn't. He just sat there and stared at me, and I just
He
sat there
did,
and stared at him, and
and
I'm just expecting
just waiting.
something to happen. I don't know. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, he just stood
I
there.
think he did, and I think the nurses, even most of the nurses went out,
Yeah,
and it was just us and him, and he is literally just standing in front of that monitor with his arms crossed, just staring, like all his attention
yeah,
on that baby. And I remember I'm like thinking, I'm like, what is he doing? Is he praying? Is he like doing some like calculation? I'm over
no,
there trying to figure out, like, is he just like, okay, baby, what are you trying to show me? Like,
yeah.
I don't know what's going on in his head, but he's just staring at that monitor.
So we found out. I'll go ahead and fill it in here. We found out. So the next day, like after I've had the baby, he comes by, and I tell him, "Thank you so much for helping me to not have to have a section." Basically. And he said, "Well, you know." having gone back and looked at your chart, there were definitely times where I would have told you to have a section, but I fell asleep. I was taking a nap and I wasn't sitting there watching the monitors like all of you were. I didn't know how many periods you had had,
Yep.
how intense it had been for several minutes. I didn't know. He said, they woke me up from my nap and I went straight into your room. And then you're telling me you want a section. And so when he said, why do you want a section? It wasn't because he thought I was stupid or because I was being stupid. It's because he literally did not even know what was going on. Know why I would want a
I
section.
know.
And
Oh,
so
so it could have
I
gone so differently.
yes, and I say, like, I truly do believe that that was the Lord intervening for me because he
Absolutely.
knew I did not want a section for so many reasons. And he made that happen because if that man had not have been napping, when I said I
Yeah.
want a section, he would have been like, "Yep." And according, even like he said, he would have encouraged me at other times to have a section. So
Yep.
that was a blessing,
Absolutely.
that he took a nap.
Yeah.
Um, so, but okay, so rewind. We just kind of hang out a little bit, but now everybody, you guys are nonstop watching the monitors. They're telling me not to push. They don't want me to push at all because if I push, that's a deceleration. And then again, this is just kind of another hole for me because I think things just kind of chill out for a little bit. And then it's time to start pushing. And even all of this, it's was kind of like inconsequential, I think. He's still decelerating, but then bouncing back. Um, and so I think everything's good. And then they do finally tell me, it's time to push. And I push. You guys are there. You're holding my legs for me and encouraging me. And I push, and I think I got him out pretty fast. I did pretty good. And they get him and they put him on my chest, and he is covered in meconium. And
Mhm.
they're vigorously rubbing him, with the towels and like trying to get. But I see him, and he's so amazing. He's huge. uh, and but there's, and I'm like, hey, I think I even said like, guys, like, calm down, But then the two nurses,
I remember you saying that, yeah, like, "Stop being
yeah,
so rough with him."
like, what are you doing? And then the two nurses who are baby nurses, they're not mommy nurses, they're his nurses. They start talking to each other, and one of them says, "Oh, I think we need to take him," and the other one was like, "Yeah, I don't know," and boom, take him. You need to take him. If you even have a question that you need to take him, you take him and you get him safe, please. Because he was struggling to breathe, like you could see it. He was grunty, and he didn't look okay. He was covered in, I mean, absolutely covered in meconium, struggling. And so they take him, and there's all this like still flurry of action around me, and now over there around him, and they're talking, but I can't really hear what they're saying. They're not really updating me, and so I'm asking you. You go over there with him, and I see you do that. But now I'm really scared because they've taken him and he's over there, and I know that their goal is to get him back to me as quick as possible, and it's not happening. I'm not hearing him crying, so I'm getting like really terrified. Sorry, Madonna. Ooh. So I know that because he has meconium all over him, it's possible he's aspirated meconium. Ooh. And I'm not hearing him, and I'm really scared. And I ask you, and you tell me what's going on, but I don't hear it. So I'm just absolutely terrified because I think maybe he's gonna die. And that just was, I have never been more terrified in my life than in that moment. I was so scared. So come to find out, I couldn't hear him, which you told me, but I didn't hear him. He wasn't crying because they were having to use instruments to suction him.
Yeah, they were doing very deep suction. Yeah.
Yeah, and ooh, oh, man.
And I know I could see the worry on your face, and I knew that's why I went over there because I'm like, because they don't communicate. And I think I even told them, "Hey, mom needs to know what's going on. Mom needs to know what's going on." And they're still not talking. So I just start calling out loud what's going on because you kept saying I can't hear him or something like that. And I
Yeah,
was like, it's because they're deep suctioning him. It's okay. It's okay. That they're trying to, clean him out. It's a good thing that he's not crying quite yet.
yeah, yeah, and I don't know why I didn't hear you, but I didn't hear you, and I can't hear him, and, it's absolutely terrifying, and I don't know how long it went on, but it felt like forever, and then you told me and he cried, and, like, right at that same time, you said, "He's okay. He is okay." But man, that was
Yeah.
ugh, like, I always knew that there was birth trauma that could be caused by providers and other things, but, like, man, that was ooh, that was really, really tough, so they get him cleaned off, and get him suction, and he's doing okay. I think his Apgar, like, at first was
It
6 or
was
a
pretty
7.
low at first. Yeah, I don't
Yeah,
remember, but it
yeah,
came
and
up
then
real quick.
yeah, they got him up, like, I think 8 or 9, like, pretty fast, and so then, I have him, and I've got a hold of him, and he's 8 pounds and 14 ounces at 37 and 6 days, so he was huge. He is still
Yeah.
huge now. At 4 months old, he is almost 21 pounds. So, yeah,
I love it.
yeah,
In those moments, it's hard. Time does feel like it just stands still.
yeah,
And while it was only really a few minutes, it feels like a lifetime
yeah,
during that. I mean, everything is so heightened and it's just it's a difficult moment. And I know how important it is that for you to be able to see and know what's going on, but it's really hard in those rooms for you to be able to because just the location of everything and what they needed to do.
yeah, yeah, they don't communicate with you, which, is I guess it's okay because they're focusing on your baby, but it is really yeah, that was I'm not exaggerating when I say I've never been so terrified. I mean, it was just absolutely horrible. But then he was here and, he it was single-handedly up to me and my husband to carry on the Bell family name. And so I did that. I had a boy. And that was amazing. Um, I called, we called the people we needed to call. Lily came and got to meet her brother. Was absolutely the most amazing thing. We made sure she was the first person to meet him outside of, his care providers. Oh, you guys, y'all were there the whole time. And like you guys both like cried with me kind of once it was all over. Like I think we all just had like a huge emotional release because of
Yeah.
so
It's
much.
so true.
Yeah. So Lily came and met him and it was amazing. And my friend Ashley came. She came to pick up Lily because Cody, Mr. Work Ethic, had a really important meeting. So he wanted to run home just for that meeting. And then he was gonna get a small nap because I was in the hospital anyway, but there wasn't anything he could really do there, and we were okay. And he had been on an emotional roller coaster himself.
Right.
He
Oh,
needed.
yes, he had gone
Oh
through a
yeah,
lot there too.
yeah, yeah. And I mean, yeah, he and I are best friends, and so it we're really really tight, and so I can't imagine what it was like for him. And so he was like, "You're in good hands. He's in good hands. I'm gonna go home. I need this meeting, and I just need a nap for like about 2 hours." And so my friend Ashley came. She brought all of her kids. I was like, "Bring your kids, just come on." And she came and she cried with me. She said, "I'm so happy for you," and it just was, super amazing. And then very hospitally. They
Yeah.
should. I kind of wish they would have just let me go, like after I had him and we were okay. And I know I could have always left, but they keep you and it's kind of like, man, just let me leave, and so then all the hospital things, get you changed, which I mean, listen, I appreciated the shower. Get you changed, get you over to mother baby now and all the tests and because he was they kept telling me because he was 8-14, they're like, your baby's really huge. There's no way you didn't have gestational diabetes. You weren't diagnosed. You had gestational diabetes and they just didn't diagnose you. We need to. And I was like, no, I really don't think I did. I did really good. Like I was charting. I was taking my blood sugar. Like I was doing pretty good. I'm pretty sure. And so they kept wanting to test him. And so they did all the tests and he was like perfectly normal. And they were like, wow, that's pretty crazy. Um, but yeah, and then we got discharged from the hospital and we've been home and it's just been bliss ever since. Yeah.
Do you think all of that, I mean, it's yay. It's awesome. But there was so much, it was so intense there for a while. Do you think that's
Yeah.
changed your parenting at all?
Maybe I definitely felt like, okay, I think I even told you guys, like, I just needed to put it in a box and tuck it
Yeah.
away in my mind and not really like deal with it. Um, so yeah, I think like at first, I was like a little bit maybe detached. It didn't quite feel like totally real. It felt like a little bit surreal there for like a little while. Um, but other than that, no. I'm still like because of what because he aspirated and everything. Like at first, I was really, really, really scared. Like if he would grunt or whatever, that was really scary.
Yeah.
Um, and so, but other than that, I don't think too much. I think there was some trauma there and some like a little bit of PTSD. So for a little bit, it took me a minute. Something I did with him, which I did not ever do with my well, actually, I guess I did do it with my daughter. It was a little bit differently. We went over to my in-laws' house the day I got out of the hospital, and I had Cody take care of the baby, and I went back in their bedroom and napped. And I didn't do that with Lily until she was a couple of days old. Um, but I mean, I had not gotten any sleep, and it had been
Yeah, you
yeah
needed rest
yeah.
for
So
sure.
I went and like knocked out like a good 3-hour nap, and everything. But I think for about a week, I felt like a little bit almost like out of body. I felt like kind of I was a little bit just going through the motions.
Yeah.
Um, but luckily that went away kind of quick. Like my husband and I did have some talks about like, hey, am I postpartum or am I just like post stress, post
Yeah.
trauma? And we realized it was post trauma. Uh, and luckily that resolved pretty quickly, and I didn't need any other help with that.
Good. Well, just discussing it, I think probably helped a whole lot to just have that open conversation with your partner. And I will
Yeah.
say for them, because we were talking about, how the partner is there and seeing all these things happen too, and it's traumatic for them as well. I mean, I remember like trying to communicate with him, like what's going on? Why is this happening this way? What's going on, and stuff. And then when you had the baby and then he was struggling, and all of that, and you're both over there like worried. I remember like I think everybody had left out of the room. You guys were just chilling and stuff. Everything was really great before Jennifer and I decided to, give you guys hugs and tell you goodbye. And, you're right. We were all crying because it was just there was so much. There had been just so much to get to there. And so all of us and as a provider, we're all storing this too and been trying to, communicate with you and help you as much as possible. But then when all that relief could be done, like this sweet, precious baby boy is on your chest and you're nursing him and you're great and he's great and everybody is really good, then you can let it go for a moment. And that's, I know, all of us were so teary eyed, but I do think it was so sweet because I hadn't actually ever talked to Cody much at all, except for, during the birth somewhat, but during the labor. But when we went to leave, he gave me the biggest hug. And I think that just kind of really hit me, like how much he had been through as well. And it's going to get me teary eyed right now, but it was a lot. And so for me, I could tell like he's not a person to just go hug anybody and to just give me such a big hug when I went to leave. I was just like, oh my goodness. Yeah, it was, yeah.
Yeah, he is not the person to hug. randomly. Yeah, I mean, that was a true expression from him to you of, like, gratitude and thankfulness,
Yeah.
because, from his perspective, him and I have talked about, like, his perspective a lot, and from his perspective, he has no control. Even, like, with Lily, when it went amazing, he still didn't have any control, and, this woman that he loves with all his heart is over there struggling and in pain and, trying to bring his child into the world. And then when you throw in, oh, there's heart rate issues and me, as much as I don't know, he knows even less
Right.
because he doesn't experience these things. He doesn't have all these conversations with his birth friends, that's not like the male bonding, that's not what they do. And so he's over there seeing deceleration and these people are like just flinging his wife around and for him, he has no idea really what's happening and he's totally having to just give up control to these people that he doesn't know at all and he's having to put like, the most precious things in the world to him in y'all's control and just watch
Yeah.
kind of helplessly. And so
Yeah.
it was really hard for him and it was really traumatic for him in so many different ways. He also really, he has some things, that he kind of has to process and deal with because it was scary for him, but yeah, he was so appreciative, of you. He says, like you helped it, you kept like telling him this and that, and letting him know what was going on and keeping him updated and he is so appreciative of that because, he says he knows he's not the person to take care of me and he knows I'll choose the right people and he's just going to support that. And, he's told me, you definitely chose the right people, those are the people that he would have chosen to be there.
Mm. I'm so glad it worked out the way it did.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. It was hard for a minute, but now it's amazing.
It was. That's, you're a strong woman. You went through so much, and that's done with now.
Yeah. Well, I mean, my birth plan, I think you'll remember my birth plan says have a baby.
That's
And so
right.
I technically stuck to my birth plan.
You did.
Yeah.
You did. Yeah, you sure did, and thank the Lord for that nap the doctor took. You avoided that C-section and got to still have him naturally,
I'm
and
telling you.
yeah,
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 I mean,
yeah,
thank the Lord for naps, right? If I couldn't rest, at least
yeah.
I was.
That's true. That's true. Well, is there anything that you would like to, any words of wisdom, anything from your story that you would like the listeners to glean?
Stop asking people when they're gonna have more babies or any babies.
Boom.
That one. That's the biggest thing I'd like you to take away from my story. Stop asking people. It's none of your business. And if it is your business, they'll talk to you about it. That's the biggest one. Other than that, no, I think just trust your body. I am always a trust your body advocate and at first I felt some shame about, oh, we had to go to the hospital, but realistically, we were where we needed to be.
Exactly. Oh, you
He
sure were.
he needed help, and there are times you need to be in a hospital, for that help. And if we had not been in a hospital, things would have been a lot more scarier because you guys didn't have the ability to, mechanically suction him. And so I think always just listen to your body. I mean, that is still my takeaway from even that experience. Although, I ended up having to have a lot of interventions that I didn't want, and I did even eventually ask for a section. I still trusted my body, and I listened to my body. I think you should always listen to your body. I think that's the big takeaway. And sometimes it's hard to do that,
Absolutely.
but listen to your body.
Absolutely. And on the provider side, like you were talking about too, like midwives are not home birth at all costs. That's not what we do. That's not what we think at all. It's while it is still the lowest while you are still low risk and while it is still the best location for you. And I love I at least I felt like, Jennifer really facilitated a good transfer there for you, seeing like, hey, yeah, this is what's going on. And then talking to you, full
Absolutely.
informed consent about that, like, hey, we see these these issues. We kind of ruled out what may or may not be the issue, but we definitely need to get to a higher level of care and making sure that is for sure what you wanted, giving you that full consent and then facilitating that. And so I think, like, absolutely, there's no shame in that whatsoever. In fact, that's exactly the way that it should go.
Yeah, I do feel like I probably had, like, aside from his struggles, I feel like I probably had the best transfer experience that you can have because
Yeah.
I was getting like kind of the best of both worlds as far as you guys were right there. If I wanted a drink, you guys were getting me a drink. You guys were helping me, when they finally would let me have blankets, you guys were letting me have blankets. You guys were keeping me, every question I had, you guys were there to answer. Um, and then even when they would come in and they would say, "Hey, we want to do this," and I would just be like, "What is that?" And they'd be like, "Oh, it's for this." And I would just look
Yeah.
at YouTube. And then you guys would be like, "Okay, this is what it's for. Here are the benefits. Here are the risks. Do you want to do this? Are you sure? Let's talk about it." Like, for example, at one point, my white blood cells were kind of getting high. And you guys were like, "Okay, Jennifer, like, we know you hate antibiotics. Like, that's what you're consenting to. Let's have a discussion about it." And I mean, I did ultimately end up choosing to do the antibiotics because what if my baby's life was at risk? And
Right.
so for me, and always I think in these situations, I think always you're the only one who knows, or maybe your husband should be included, but you're the only one who really knows what level of risk you're willing to take because everything is a
For
risk
sure.
benefit. Everything is a risk benefit. And so okay, yes, I'm about to just mow down my rainforest of beneficial gut bacteria when you give me these antibiotics, but it's going to make sure my baby doesn't come out with a massive infection because we're struggling here. So
Right.
um I do feel like I had as the best informed consent because what they weren't telling me, you guys were. You guys were filling in those holes and you guys were answering my questions. And yeah, you guys stayed the whole time, which was absolutely unnecessary, but absolutely amazing. And, I have never felt so supported, even although it was really hard, like I knew that I was supported. And there's something to be said for that. That really is really important. And I wish that everybody recognized that for mothers. We just need to be supported.
Well, I think that's truly what being a midwife is all about, being with women alongside you, no matter, where we're at, no matter the situation, and like we're coming alongside you and we're going to stay beside you while needed. And
Yeah.
so, yeah,
Yeah.
I personally, and I know Jennifer as well, just extremely thankful for the opportunity to get to come alongside you during that time.
Yeah. It was very special, and I know I've told you guys, but it takes a special woman to be able to walk with a woman in her lowest points and lift her up. And that's a gift from the Lord that you can do that. And I know we've talked about that, but yeah, it's I can't tell you guys how much I appreciate all of y'all.
Well, we feel like it's a gift as well. So,
Yeah,
yeah.
it is.
Yeah. Well, Jennifer, I really want to thank you so much for coming on the podcast today. Thank you for sharing your stories with us,
Yeah,
and really encouraging the listeners. And I think we gain so much whenever we share in each other's journey and we listen to each other's stories. And yeah, it helps grow each of us. So thank you for doing that.
yeah, sure thing. Thank you for having me. Thank you for doing this. I mean, this is amazing. It's like free therapy for me.
There we go. We got to pull that box out to deal with it
Exactly.
and
Yep, I put the
set
box
it back
out.
aside
Yeah,
now.
yeah. I'm gonna go have some
Yeah,
dinner and get back.
there you go.
Thank you.